All right, everybody, welcome into the Sideline Fantasy Week 2 podcast. I'm here joined by my co-host Kyle and Crimmy Charles here, ready to rock and talk about kind of a little bit of last week's action. We had some really close matchups and to take a look at the upcoming week. Fantasy football's finally back. It was a whole lot of fun watching the game again last week. Football back on Sundays. We got the season rolling. How we doing, fellas? Kyle, start us off. How'd you feel
Uh,
after last week?
I'm doing pretty good. My
It's got
hand
the
is still recovering. It's a little bit red after the spanking I handed out to my buddy Crimmy Charles there. I'm hoping his rear end is starting to heal a little bit, and my handprints are slowly starting to fade away.
Yeah, a rematch of last year's playoff game, right? I believe, wasn't it? Between you and Crimmy, he got you. Kyle got you back there, Crim. 87 points. That's bad, man. That's pretty low on half PPR. That's not good.
Trust me, I know it's bad, okay? I'm okay with losing week one. I'm okay losing to Kyle in the regular season because when it comes down to the playoffs, I know I'll pull it out at some point in time, so I'm cool with that. But at the same time, too, we'll get into it later, but two pieces that Kyle had in the squad to beat me this week, you don't have them no more, so we'll see how his team fares out moving
Oh,
forward.
and we'll see. Krim has already overreacted and, of course, made a trade after 1 week. So we'll have to talk about that soon. We'll see how many more come throughout the season. But what were some surprises in week 1 for you guys? Obviously, Dana and Jay's matchup was just insane coming down to the last minute there. Dana actually took the lead. I thought he would have had it secured, and then Lamar fumbled the ball late. So that was an absolutely crazy matchup there. That was one of, I think, two matchups decided within like 3 points of each other. What were some things that kind of caught your eye in the first week, Kyle?
Yeah, that was definitely the first thing that kind of catch my eye. I mean, Dana and Jay were the number one and number two in my power rankings going into week one. So to have them face off week one and have it be this tight was definitely something to watch. The dramatic fashion in which Dana lost was definitely something that was not, I guess you can call it exciting. I don't know. I don't know who I should be rooting for in this matchup, but I'm just hoping that both teams lose again this week and I can kind of maybe expand my lead. Other than that, no other big takeaways other than I have the best team in the league, and I'm not looking back.
I know he took all them fun bad grades in the beginning of the year to heart. He's ready to show us
I'm
what
gonna
he's
run the
got.
table.
Oh yeah. Krim, what about you? Any kind of thing that kind of stood out to you week 1? Week 1's always fun because it's such a mystery. Like, what are the committees going to look like? What's playing time going to look like for some of these teams? Everyone's just kind of like waiting with bated breath to hope that like their sleeper guy is going to get as much playing time as they hope. What kind of stood out to you outside of
Yeah,
you dropping an 87 point
I
stinker?
mean, yeah. Outside of that, I mean, outside of I guess, a certain matchup in particular, was the tight ends. Like this first week, obviously, you weren't expecting people to just kind of explode and all have great, fantastic games. But to see we had like what two tight ends with Kittle and Waller kind of perform. Outside of that, everybody kind of just dropped the ball. So it's weird to have this like dead zone of tight ends, which obviously we knew we would have, just because you have those top 3, 4 guys and then there's a big drop off. But it seems like right now with this first week in the books, it's really just there's two guys that are kind of the same, not type of player, but they had the same role in the offense with those teams, and then everybody else just kind of blends in. So I'm interested to see how kind of that breaks down, week two, week three, moving forward, just to see if teams with Kelsey and with Waller are that much better than teams without them.
Yeah, for sure. And we were 1 point away. If Chad could have just scored one measly more point like 1.08 points, the two Charles brothers would have actually put up the two least amount of points this week, Krim. So we got to make sure that that doesn't happen. We got to make sure those Canadian guys, remember, you need a lot of points in football. This isn't golf,
I
right?
see. I'm thinking it's CFL rules. You have less downs, you usually get
Yeah.
less points, and you win. So I thought I was doing very well, but apparently not.
No, not too much there, but all in good fun. It's glad the season's back, and I know I'll say it probably throughout the next couple weeks, but now that the season's been extended one more game for fantasy, the first 3 games, I believe, I mean, the first 5 are all division no matter what, but the first 3 are division games that you will play that person again later in the season. So Kyle and Krim will play each other again later
Conference.
in the year. Your first 3 opponents you do play twice. So tiebreakers are going to be interesting with that being said. But let's take a look.
Grim, you only got to beat me by 80 points to get the
I mean,
tiebreaker.
I've got you. I've got Eric twice. I mean, I'm sure these first 2 and probably the last 2 podcasts are going to be something else.
I lied. You could beat me by 80 points and still not get the tiebreaker.
There you go.
I'm not even worried about that.
All right, let's head into the trades, guys. There's been a couple trades since the draft show. I think the draft show is like the 25th or 6th of August. Let's quick break these down. The first kind of real big one that involved a bigger player was the DeAndre Swift going to Peter for Coleman and Mooney. That got a lot of heat early. We had it's a pretty big name player getting traded for kind of mid-range players, I would say. That was at least the general consensus. Krim, what did you think about that trade between Justin and Peter?
Obviously, I'll take a perspective of it being before the games because obviously it did happen then. I can see why Justin would have sort of a sense of upside with Evan Coleman being the starter there, the quote-unquote starter. But it's just weird to draft a guy like Swift where you got him and to trade him away just for depth like that. I mean, there's really no reason to do it. A running back is very valuable. I don't care if he's hurt and he may miss, this week but at that point in time, like you might as well give him a chance, let him try his hand. And then obviously if he did wait the week out and then moved him now, I mean, you're getting much more than what you got there. So he kind of got fleeced. I'm not going to lie.
Kyle,
what were you thinking about that one between your buddy Justin and Peter?
Yeah, I was trying to talk him out of it the whole time. I thought it was garbage. But I mean, at that time, he thought that Tevin Coleman was the running back one for the Jets, that he was going to put up some decent numbers, and then on top of that, Darnell Mooney was going to be the wide receiver 2 for the Bears, and hopefully a high flying Justin Fields led offense. So like, I don't know. I guess it was kind of maybe a homer trade, but it was good to see Darnell Mooney getting 100% of snaps or like a high percentage of snaps. I think it was basically on the field the entire game, which was good for him. I just don't think it's going to be a very potent offense. It's going to be able to support 2 wide receivers. So we'll kind of see what he gets out of Darnell Mooney and if he can even be a weekly starter. Tevin Coleman, I mean, even if he's kind of the lead back for the Jets, he won't be a bell cow. And so I don't know if he's even going to be fantasy relevant. So, I mean, hindsight, we can all look at this trade and go, this trade was hot garbage, and Justin gets an F and Peter gets an A. At the time, maybe it was more like a B and a C, but in hindsight, it's not great.
Yeah, I remember when the trade went through, a lot of people were bashing it. I mean, neither of Mooney or Coleman are even owned in 50% of leagues. Mooney 48%. Coleman, for being a running back and for being that guy, was only about 25% even heading into last week ownage in leagues. So we're talking about DeAndre Swift, who I want to say was around a 3rd round pick.
He was his 2nd round pick.
2nd round pick, right? So, and I'm not even saying I'm a huge Swift guy, but to give up that possible guy, and obviously we know hindsight, the guy scored 20 points in week 1, but I think this trade was pretty shredded on in the beginning. We'll see how it works out, but yeah, not the greatest there. Another trade between Justin and co-host Crimmy. So Kyle, I'll kind of let you take this one away. It involves your favorite player in the league, Aaron Rodgers, going to Crimson in exchange for 2 receivers, Mike Williams and Jalen Waddle, both having pretty good week 1 performances. What did you make of this one?
It was okay. I kind of like it more for the Crim side. I think Crim is going to get a top 8, maybe top 6 quarterback. I'm not concerned about Aaron Rodgers' production yet this year. I feel like giving up Mike Williams, Jalen Waddle. I'm not too high on Jalen Waddle. I still think that rookie wide receivers, it typically takes a while unless you're kind of really an outlier. It usually takes a while for rookie wide receivers to really break on the scene. They got to be in a really good situation like Devontae Smith is in. But Jalen Waddle, I don't even know if he's he's the wide receiver 3 on his team. And Mike Williams, we know he's boom bust, and we know that he's injury prone. He's getting back Aaron Rodgers, who we know is going to be, as long as he's on the field, is going to be a top 8 quarterback. But Justin looked at this as he's going, I'm going to get plenty of depth. I'm going to get 2 guys that I can play. I can mix and match matchups, and I can go find a quality quarterback on the waiver wire. And he went and spent $8 on Jameis Winston Winston, who threw for four touchdowns last week. And he believes that Jameis Winston, and he can play matchups to fill Aaron Rodgers' production. He's not worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Mike Williams, who's been an 1,000-yard receiver before, very close, very boomer bust guy. He's not going to be a 70, 80, 90 catch guy. Jalen Waddle, again, week 1, performed pretty well. 60 catches or 60 yards, sorry, and a touchdown, put up 14 points. Both guys do have 1,000-yard receiver potential, but again, with that offense in Miami, I don't really know who's going to get the bulk of the yardage, kind of what Kyle was alluding to, especially with Tua back there. He's not going to be a guy that
Tua
slings
can't
it down the
support
field.
3 wide receivers. He can't
Right.
support Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, and Jalen Waddle. I know
It's
that.
a lot. So I think that the scores we saw last week from Williams and Waddle, he would be happy if he got close to that every week between those two guys there. Krim really needed a quarterback. He had Baker as his guy. He was riding him high, but there were some other options on the table during the draft, and Krim kept just waiting and waiting. You don't really see too many trades for a quarterback, especially in a 12-team, 1 QB league, but Krim pulled the trigger here early, and like Kyle said, as long as he's Aaron Rodgers, he should be a top 5 to 8 fantasy quarterback, if not higher. Krim, break it down real quick. What was your thoughts on the trade and why you did it?
I mean, I had the depth to give him up. Week in and week out, I have Diggs right now. I have Devontae. I have Mike Evans. I'm not going to bench those guys for Mike Williams or Jalen Waddle, so I figured I can kind of replace them fairly easily, take a shot on somebody else, a different receiver in the waiver wire, and just grab Rodgers so I can stack with Devontae and not have to worry about playing matchups every week with Baker or Kirk Cousins or streaming. I mean, if I can take that off my plate and just worry about my guys performing and throwing in the right people, then I'm cool with that. So, I mean, it's somebody I can sit in there until he has a bye week, and then at that point in time, sure, make some sort of change. But outside of that, I'm rocking with him for the year, so I'm cool with it.
The thing I will say about Aaron Rodgers, though, is that like I don't like trading for we don't see quarterback trades too often. I don't like trading for kind of mid-level quarterbacks. It depends on what you think you're getting out of Aaron Rodgers. If you think you're getting like a top 4 quarterback out of Aaron Rodgers, I think the trade makes sense. But like, is Aaron Rodgers even a guy that you want on the field for his matchups that are coming up at San Francisco versus Pittsburgh, at Chicago, Washington? Like, are those going to be starts that you feel like you are going to roll them out there and not worry about it? Or do you think that you could fill, I guess I'll ask you this, Krim, do you think that you could fill a better option than the waiver wire? And would you roster 2 quarterbacks?
I have no problem rostering 2 quarterbacks, but with my mindset, I am not going to, just because I like Rodgers no matter what. I mean, he won an MVP last year. I know this offseason kind of was a distraction to a degree, but it's still a guy who we know can play football and play football very well. Last year was, a year I'm trying to replicate, obviously. I'm hoping that he does. But even if he doesn't, I mean, having the ability to stack my quarterback and receiver and know that those points are coming to me and me only, I mean, I'm cool with doing that week in and week out. But I'm not really concerned about a defense. I mean, we saw Daniel Jones. I mean, yeah, he ran a bit, but he diced up Washington in regards to passing the ball too. So, I mean, that defense doesn't really scare me. San Fran, same thing. Jared Goff, garbage time, yes, but was still able to do, what he had to do with worse receivers. So, I mean, you see guys like that doing that, and you got Rodgers sitting there. You're like, well, why not him? So I got no problem rocking with Rodgers no matter the matchup.
Yeah, Green Bay's going to be in. So, go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say, I would like to point out that Aaron Rodgers did win MVP last year, and he was technically only the quarterback 4 in points per game because Kyler Murray missed time and Patrick Mahomes didn't play the last week or 2 of the year. So, I mean, technically, Aaron Rodgers should have been like the quarterback 4 on the year. So even his peak MVP season, quarterback 4, not the quarterback 1.
It's the running now. Yeah, the running's taking over for QB fantasy quarterbacks. And if you just got that sit back pocket passer, you better hope they're throwing for close to 40 touchdowns to be in the top 5 for sure. Green Bay's got a couple primetime games coming up. I don't know what's going to happen in Green Bay if they somehow struggle against Detroit this week. That'll be a fun one for you Packer fans. But Kyle, you decided to just get Mike Williams right from your buddy Justin. Justin decided to trade him to you for James Conner. Quick 1-for-1 trade there. Interesting because it's not, teams usually aren't willing to just give up a 15 plus touch back. You did that with James Conner. You got Mike Williams. What was your kind of quick 1-for-1 breakdown on that one?
Yeah, I just with But James Conner, James Conner doesn't get really a lot of respect. I've kind of tried shopping him around. Nobody really wanted him. I just didn't really see many scenarios where I would actually want James Conner in my lineup. I do think he's the goal line back. I do think he'll have plenty of double-digit games. I just think that there's a floor there, and with Chase Edmonds there and involved in the passing game, I just don't think the ceiling's there for James Conner. I think the ceiling of Mike Williams is a lot higher. And so I just would rather have a guy like Mike Williams in my lineup, especially this week, as opposed to a guy like James Conner. I think that at the end of the year, I think Mike Williams will put up more fantasy points than James Conner. I don't think it'll be particularly close.
Yeah, the Arizona backfield is definitely a question mark here these last couple of years, especially with Murray pretty much being their best runner out of the backfield. Krim, 1-for-1, quick thoughts on that one. Are you taking the running back that's getting the carries right now, or do you like the upside of 1,000-yard Mike Williams?
I like the upside of Mike Williams more so. I mean, yes, James Conner is the goal line back. Yes, that can be valuable, but like you said, Kyler Murray is going to be that guy more often than not. And if James Conner, gets a touchdown here and there, whatever, I mean, kind of reminds me, he's in a situation like Mike Tolbert was back in the day, where may not get many yards in a game unless he's kind of absolutely going off. But if you're putting him in there and hoping that he scores a touchdown and he doesn't do that, he's probably going to give you 3-4 points every week. So I mean, I'm taking the upside of Mike Williams, who we've seen. He might give you 4 as his floor, which is cool. I mean, you'll get that from Connor, but he also has a better shot of giving you 18 as opposed to Connor doing that. So I'm cool with the receiver there.
Plus,
Yeah,
we
I
know
think
who the goal line back is in Arizona.
Yeah,
Kyler Murray.
absolutely Kyler Murray.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like the Bills situation there with Josh Allen. Yep, very much so. Kyle still wasn't done for the week. Kyle's always trying to do what he can to upgrade his team, and he yet again made another trade. I'm guessing this kind of had a little bit to do with getting even more depth at receiver with Mike Williams. You felt like you could send a couple receivers away and maybe get an upgrade at that position. You got Robert Woods from Chad. You sent away Corey Davis and Deebo Samuel, which I know you've been kind of dangling on the end of the fishing pole for a while here. Krim, I'll let you start off with this one. What did you think about this 2-for-1 where Kyle got Woods and Chad got Davis and Samuel?
In hindsight, I don't mind it. Obviously, Kyle's kind of cashing in as we all would with 2 solid week 1 performances. I trust Robert Woods a lot. Like I'm pretty in on him, so I like the return for Kyle. Getting Davis and getting Deebo Samuel into his lineup for Chad isn't bad, but I mean, Chad's team definitely needs more work in regards to, obviously, as you can see on the screen, Saquon's a big factor there. So I mean, if he can't perform and Chad needs to kind of move pieces around and these guys continue to play, well, I mean, he can do that. So he has the ability to do it. Chad kind of made the move, seeing that he needs players to come in and make plays, and these guys exploded. So I like it for both. I don't mind it for both sides. I mean, obviously, if I'm Kyle, I'm happier that I got Woods back as opposed to keeping Davis and Samuel and kind of hoping that those guys do this week in and week out. But I don't think it's a bad trade for both sides.
Yeah, it's I mean, the cliche, like, hey, I'm trading 2 guys, let me get an upgrade at that position. I think that's what Kyle's looking at. Very much so. Woods is going to be a force in that LA offense. I really think the Rams are going to do really a lot of damage this year between Kupp and Woods and who they got there. Stafford looked really great last week. I think the Rams are cruising to probably 11 or 12 victories this year. And he traded Corey Davis, who might be the number 1 in New York, but it is the New York Jets. But he had a pretty good first game last week, putting up 24 points and 2 touchdowns. And Deebo Samuel, I don't know who really is the number 1 there either, but Deebo Samuel, 9 catches, 12 targets, 189 yards last week. It was against the very low Detroit Lions, but Kyle was trying to strike while the iron was hot, saw that Deebo and Davis probably had as much value as they were going to get after those week 1 performances, and checked in with Robert Woods. I mean, right, Kyle, is there anything more you got to say on your reasoning behind that one?
Yeah, I mean, not too much. It just feels like I always get anxious whenever I have like good bench players. It's like, well, I feel like these guys are start worthy, and I feel like, when I have Chenault and Mike Williams and Devontae Smith, and it's like I shouldn't have to bench these guys. So let me try and find some value somewhere else so I can get these guys in my lineup, turn 2 guys into 1, make the deal. I know Chad wasn't too happy with some of his performances week 1, and I wasn't sure if he had an injury or 2, but it just kind of worked out that that's what he wanted to happen. I know his wide receiver depth was a little thin, so just kind of sent the trade over, and we struck a deal.
Were you surprised, him being a Rams fan, that he was like, I saw that, I'm like, oh wow, Chad traded him. Was it hard, or was it just quick and easy?
I well, like Chad's a tough one to deal with because like I'll send Chad messages and like I won't get any like response, and then I'll just be like, or he'll like respond to me once. I'll send like another message. I like won't hear from him for a day or two. I sent him 3 offers. I sent him like my best Woods offer. I sent him a Saquon offer, and I sent him a Gibson offer. And so he took the Robert Woods offer, and that's kind of how some of his trades worked with baseball too. Where when his fire sale was going on before the trade deadline.
Right. Yeah, good old Kyle putting in that work. He's doing it. So he gets Robert Woods. That's it for the trades. Let's take a quick
I
look
know
at
I know
the
you got a fun offer from me earlier.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, you're always working, man. It's good stuff. Let's take a look at now the waiver transactions. There was a few, only 2 of them were worth more than 10 points. Christian Kirk 11 points, Tim Patrick 8, Jameis 8. You mentioned earlier from Justin. But let's talk about that big one, guys. We know week 1's always interesting. We know people try to pounce on that running back. I remember I did it a few years ago, and it ended up being huge for me. Being able to get certain running backs after week 1. It's always a wonder of how expensive they're going to go. Peter spent a whopping 72 points on Eli Mitchell from San Francisco, who did do really good. He was RB 15 last week with 16 points, 100 yards, and a touchdown. But 72 points was pretty eye popping from me. I know Krim was in there as well with 50 points. So let's go to the other guy here, Kyle. What did you think about some of those waivers in week 1?
Yeah, I mean the Elijah Mitchell bonanza was a little bit much, I think. I mean, a lot of people say that they waste their fab, and so they're like, well, I'm not going to hang on to it. You know, I'm going to end up with 50 fab at the end of the year, so why not just spend it and get a guy that I like? So that was Peter getting a guy that he liked, and as we will talk about later, Peter's team kind of got pretty well rounded with this move. But 72 points for Eli Mitchell, where we don't really know exactly what he is. I mean, he could probably be the running back 3 for San Francisco this year. I think he'll definitely have some value, but I don't really see like the upside there. I just don't think that San Francisco's going to look to get anybody more than 15 carries in any given week. So I just don't think it was really the right guy to spend up all the fab on. So, I mean, you can have him for 72, PD.
Yeah, and the thing is, San Francisco, ever since Shanahan has gotten there, has always been pretty committee at running back. I mean, between Mozart and Tevin Coleman and who else did they get from Minnesota a couple years ago? Whoever that was. But
Beretta.
yeah, Breda. They've had McKinnon, all those guys coming in. It's always been a committee there, and to think that Trey Sermon, guys, and I know he was inactive week 1, but Trey Sermon was a 3rd-round pick. Mitchell was a 6th-round pick this year. I don't really see the organization really kind of putting in all their eggs for a 6th-round pick when the 3rd-round pick was drafted that much ahead of him and is supposedly doing big things in camp. So to spend that big of a whopping total was a lot. But hey, Krim tried to do it too. I believe you put 50. Was it 50 on him, or am I incorrect here?
No,
Did
no,
you?
yeah. I put 50, but I mean, in my I guess not really defense. I lost Mostert, so that was somebody I had to kind of target.
Trying to handcuff it, yeah.
Just to kind of make sure I had both backs in the backfield. But I wasn't putting down 72. I wasn't putting down 80. Like I knew that if I didn't get him at 50, that's where my cutoff was, and I wouldn't have got him at 50. I don't think. I think Tyler had a bid for 51, which was fine. I mean, I have Sermon. I'm willing to wait and hope that, like Kyle said, that's somebody who, and you had also mentioned it, that's somebody who's there and pushing him.
I wouldn't be surprised if Ayuk got carries too.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like that offense is pretty, I guess, creative in regards to who gets the carries out of the backfield, and they're not willing to give somebody a straight workhorse load of 20 carries a game anyway. So putting that much into somebody like that, it's tough. Obviously, I tried to cover my ass with the injury happening, but I mean, I'm cool with waiting for Sermon. I'm cool with, I have Hasty as well. I'm cool with seeing if one of these guys somehow, some way takes the starting role and is the one getting 17 carries, or the other 2 get, 4, 8, or whatever the heck the number is going to be. I mean, you're playing a hot hand game there anyways, and you're kind of hoping you have the right guy. So 72, that's quite a lot to try to, hope you have the hot hand, but I already have, 2 eggs in this 3-egg basket, so I'm cool with my chances there.
Yeah, a couple other waiver pickups there. Any last thoughts on that between the Winston Patrick, Kirk, anything of note there, Kyle, before we move on?
Sneakiest one, I think, was probably Patriots D. Other than that, I don't have too high expectations for anyone else that was picked up.
$3 on him too. He made sure he got him.
Yeah, they got the Jets this week, and Bill Belichick has a pretty good track record versus rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be worth his while.
I do see Kyle got Peyton Barber. I'm hoping to fill in the Josh Jacobs role there. We'll see how that pans out. Any last transactions there for you, Krim, before we move on? Anything of note?
No, I mean, this is probably one of the not weaker but less eventful week ones of the fantasy spectrum as a whole, which is good in a sense as we haven't seen many injuries week one, so I'll take that for what it is. But no, I mean, outside of Eli Mitchell, I mean, that's kind of all we were looking at for the most part.
I think that was a record too for most points on a player for bidding. I want to say it was because I thought the 40s, 50s were about as high as it went. To see 70 was quite a bit.
And I kind of try to guess that too for getting a player. I'm most of the time people aren't putting down 70, but here we are, we're seeing it now.
So I can't remember what I spent for Philip Lindsay after week one a couple years ago when that Foreman guy or whatever, Royce Freeman, didn't get the job. I spent quite a bit, but I don't remember how much. Let's look at the matchups though, guys. For this week, there are some good ones. And like I said, the first 5 weeks are always going to be division matchups. So these are going to be interesting. Let's go with what's on Kyle's screen, which is going to be his matchup first. Tyler versus Kyle here. Tyler's already got 7 points on the week with Logan Thomas riding his Washington train here. Kyle's still projected to lose by 7 points, but Kyle 1-0. Most points scored last week, off to a good start. Tyler 1-0 as well. I believe this is one of our only 1-0 matchups on the week. There's not. Let me see. I think there's
let's Jay and Peter.
there's only one other. Yeah, there's only one other, Jay and Peter. So the one of the O's has got to go here. Krim, what do you think about this matchup quickly?
It's pretty balanced from what I can see. I mean, you've got a strong quarterback, a very strong RB1, 2 stronger RB2s, and I mean, I think that the X factor here is going to be Waller again. I mean, you're playing a really tough defense in Pittsburgh for Kyle. I mean, last week, obviously, you played a defense that was pretty good in Baltimore as well. So if Waller can repeat his success again, I mean, that's going to be a game changer week in and week out, and it makes the team look that much better. So, I mean, it's pretty balanced. I'm excited to see, obviously, how this game plays out and who takes their first loss, but that's someone I'm keying in on this week.
Yeah, from Kyle's perspective, I still think the PPR might be a little bit of an issue. DJ Moore is not going to be a big catch guy. Mike Williams might not be a big catch guy. We'll kind of see what Devontae Smith's role is there. Is he going to be an 80, 90 catch guy? I don't know. To me, that screams a lot of 60 catch 1,000-yard guys, but we'll see if Derrick Henry can get going after Tennessee. Him and Montgomery both aren't PPR guys as well, so I always worry about that facet of Kyle's team. But other than that, some favorable matchups this week all around there. Tyler, on the other hand, Kyler against Minnesota, Dalvin Cook against Arizona should be a fun one. He's got Justin Jefferson to pair with him. Kyle, your thoughts heading into this one? You think you're going to cruise to 2-0? I know you don't want to jinx yourself.
Yeah, I would never do such a thing. I think probably the biggest X factor here is Justin Jefferson. I mean, in that Arizona matchup, that game could easily shoot out. He could put up some serious points in that game. Other than that, if I look across the board, I mean, Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray seems like a wash. Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook seems like a relative wash. I'd give an edge to David Montgomery over Miles Sanders. Woods and Jefferson, probably pretty close, same tier. Deontay Johnson, DJ Moore, same tier. Pretty big advantage there at tight end. And then the 2 flexes, I'll take Mike Williams, Devontae Smith over Jacoby Myers and T. Higgins. So I kind of like a lot of the matchups that I have, but I mean, a lot can happen. And as we know, fantasy is very unpredictable. So
and really your big PPR guy's Waller. I mean, he's the guy that's going to be out there making a lot of catches for you.
If Darren Waller gets 20 targets every week, I think my team will be in good shape.
Yeah, I would say so. Got one of those elite tight ends. All right, let's move on to the next matchup then, which is going to be Chad versus Dana, which has already got quite a few points on the board. Chad with 41 from 4 players, actually, including his defense. McLaurin got him 22 as well. Gibson and Barkley, his 2 running backs, only 16.2 points total.
It's probably not a solid 41.
Yeah, not a great solid 41. In fact, he's just projected to be over 100, although Dane's only projected for 90 as well. I know me and Kyle are pretty high on Dane's team. We like him. Kind of got off to a really shaky start last week. I know he's big on Hardman, but interestingly, he has Hardman and Tyreek Hill starting this week. And I think he was forced into that decision because Dana does have Josh Jacobs and Will Fuller's out this week for personal reasons. So although Chad doesn't have a good 41, Dana's team is looking a little shaky heading into this week. Crimson, what do you think? Your mic's off.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
There
I don't
you
know
go.
how that happened. Yeah, it's pretty rough for Chad. He's off to a pretty bad start in regards to that Thursday night game. I mean, obviously you can't really bench. You can bench Barkley. I mean, I've seen people doing it as of late, but Gibson, that's the one that surprises me, man. I mean, I did not think McKissick would come in and kind of take away such numbers from him in a game like that. So that's concerning to a degree. But I mean, just putting it up 41 through 4 players is tough. And the rest of the guys you have, like Dak's not in essentially in a favorable matchup. I mean, he plays the Chargers. They're not, they didn't give up a lot of points last week to Washington, so they're not too bad. You have Corey Davis trying to play that New England defense, like Kyle alluded to. Bill Belichick's good at, shutting down those rookies. And Mark Andrews isn't too hot as last week either. So, I mean, although Dana is kind of forced into playing Hardman and then doesn't have really great depth on his bench with guys being out, I think he has a much better shot coming out of the gate than Chad does, just because Thursday kind of, I say it all the time, Thursday can kill you. If you have, more than 2 guys in the game, Thursday can absolutely kill you. And I feel like that's what's happening with Chad.
Yeah, it could definitely kill your buzzkill heading into a Sunday matchup when Thursday does not go well for sure. Not only does Dana have 2 KC players going, he also has 2 Indy players going in Pittman and Taylor. So he's writing a lot of those games. Kyle, thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I think that Chad's kind of dug himself into a hole that he probably won't be able to get out of. Dana's got a good, well-rounded team. It's going to take a very valiant effort by Chad, but I mean, Chad's kind of running out of punches here because I mean, he doesn't really have that many more levers to pull when it comes to his team when half his team has already played. So, and when you're playing a team like Dana's, who's looking pretty good, you kind of need a lot of things to go right. And Chad's just kind of running out of things that could go right at this point. So as long as Dana just has a pretty good week, it'll be very hard for Chad to pull this one off.
Yeah, I think Dak needs to put up at least 25, 30 points against the Chargers, which I like the Chargers. I think their defense is going to be fine, but who knows? Dallas does put up a lot of points. So we'll see how that one goes. Both teams 0-1 looking to get to 1-1 on the season. Next matchup on the docket is going to be Peter and Gotham City Rogues, right? So we got Jay versus Peter, the other 1-0 versus 1-0 matchup. This is projected to be really close. Peter at 120, Jay at 119. Kyle, we'll start you off on this one. Both teams pretty solid matchups coming in, but like I said, both teams 1-0. So after this week, we should only have 2 undefeated teams left. Well, no, never mind. 2, but we'll lose an undefeated team at least for sure. 2 of them. But what do you think about this matchup heading in? Projected to be really, really close.
Yeah, is there a way to view player by player predictions in this or no?
I'm not too sure.
Okay, great podcasting here. But anyway, I look at both teams and obviously I think it's going to be a good matchup. I'm not really sure who I'm rooting for in this matchup. I think there's definitely some good matchups in here, some good, well-rounded teams. From what I can see, I kind of like Peter's team here. I think he's going to get some good bounce back performances. I think he's got some nice floor with a lot of his players. And if you kind of compare a lot of the skill positions between these 2 teams, it looks pretty comparable until you get to tight end, where Peter's team looks just pretty well-rounded. And then you're like, oh, wow, this seems like a decent team. And then you get down to tight end and he's like, oh shit, he has Travis Kelce too. This looks not good for Jay. So I think it'll probably come down to the wire. But I'm going to give a slight edge to Peter on this one.
And both teams have Monday night running backs going. Jay has Aaron Jones going at Monday night, while Peter has DeAndre Swift going Monday night. I think, like you said, these teams are very comparable. I tend to like Jay's team a little bit more. Cup, Godwin, Schuster, all going to have a lot of catches. Carson's going to be a hog. Aaron Jones and Mixon, you hope, are both going to be hogs. I still like Jay's team. I think Peter's still got a lot of improving guys, but he proved it last week with the win. Crimson, what do you think about this one?
I think both teams absolutely suck ass.
There you
So,
go.
no. It's obviously these two teams won last week. They're kind of on not opposite spectrums on my list, but Jay was a team I'm very high on coming into the season, and just to see him almost lose last week and have someone like Aaron Jones give him only 3 points, I think that and he still put up 124, right? Something like that, 123. So that's to me it's a scary sight to see. But like the teams, they're not really similar. Peter's team has upside, and it's kind of all it is for the most part. You have Henderson, you have Najee Harris. Those two guys aren't going to come in and give you 15 points guaranteed every week. I mean, those guys are hit or miss for the most part. I mean,
Henderson
Najee
played on like 99% of snaps.
yeah, like and that's something that's gonna actually be really good for Peter, because Sony Michel came in and had 1 carry for 2 yards, and that was literally it. So obviously keeping him on his team is just for more so insurance. But I mean, Swift, questionable. I know he did go through a practice, and I think he's going to play. But again, like that against Green Bay, I mean, that's a tough defense, and I think that team's going to kind of bounce back. So that could be, a blemish on this team already, just being one of the top guys, and just the consistency here. I mean, Antonio Brown had a great week 1. CeeDee Lamb had a great week 1. Landry had an okay week 1. I mean, he plays Houston this week, so it could be good for him. But those two guys, those two receivers, and AB and CeeDee Lamb, I mean, they both broke out week 1, but they're in not tougher matchups. CeeDee Lamb is for sure, but Antonio Brown, do you think that's going to be somebody who goes out and gets you those points every week? Because he only had I think 5 receptions, and he had 120 touchdown. Antonio Brown. So like that's
Of course it doesn't show.
It's inconsistent.
Why would it? NFL.com. Why would receptions be relevant?
They don't want it. I mean, they do
He had
show
5.
it.
It says in the
Yeah,
thing,
they do show it in the app, and
Okay.
it's kind of weird. But I mean, again, it's just Jay's team to me on paper, having Cup, who seems to be the number 1 guy right now in that Rams offense, having Godwin going up against his Antonio Brown kind of cancels out. And Fant, I mean, yes, he has Kelsey, but Fant is a big spot for this team now, just because Judy being out for probably 4 to 8 weeks. Fant being, one of your top receivers at that point too, that could be very big for this team moving forward, and could solidify some things here. So I like Jay's side of things for the most part.
Yeah, and who knows how bad that Tennessee defense is, because Russell Wilson looked really good last week, and now he gets to verse Tennessee, and who's to say he doesn't throw another 4 touchdowns? Because I don't know what's going on there with Vrabel and that Tennessee defense, but Russell Wilson could be the X factor in that one. Although Brady going against Atlanta, who knows? Maybe that's a high scoring affair as well.
Call your guys a shot now. Who should Peter flex between Jarvis Landry, Brandon Ayuk, Jamar Chase, and Elijah Mitchell?
Man, I would say Landry.
I mean, I'm flexing Mitchell. Just you put the points on him, and he got the touches. I mean, I'm flexing the running back.
Yeah, if I spent that much, I would probably play him. I know he was kind of debating that earlier, but oh man, that's a lot of points to spend on your bench.
Yeah,
I would probably go Jamar Chase, then Ayuk. Part of me wants to go Ayuk first, but I know you can't trust him right now. But I think it's going to be Ayuk will finish at the top of all those guys. Ayuk, then Jamar Chase, then Mitchell, then Landry.
Yeah. Me being a Bears fan, it's hard to say Chase, but I will say he did look pretty electric last week. So we'll see how that
secondary
goes.
Looked top notch, right?
Awful, yeah, awful, just bad. That's who would have thought that would have been a weak spot coming in. No one guessed that. All right. Next matchup is going to be the Bear Necessities, which is Justin 1-0 versus Rob, who's 0-1, tragically 0-1. Rob put up a big game last week, but we got some interesting matchups here as well. Justin is going to go with the Jameis Winston train against Carolina and James Conner. So his team looks a little bit different this week, even though he got the win last week. What do you think about your buddy's chances this week here, Kyle?
They don't look great. The outlook doesn't look the best for Justin. I know Jameis Winston threw for 4 touchdowns. I know Jameis Winston likes to air it out, but that's a team that's going to be a team that I think wants to run the ball more than they want to pass. So you got to think that, are the touchdowns going to come through the air to Alvin Kamara, or are they going to try and run them in? I think that's going to be the big question. I think the Saints will put up points, if it's just a matter of how they get them. And if they get a lead, they're not going to let Jameis air it out like they kind of did this past week. And I mean, even on the 4 touchdowns, he only had 150 yards. So I don't know what what we're going to get out of Jameis Winston. I think he'll be fine, but I don't think you can expect 4 touchdowns out of him every week. James Conner, you just have to hope he scores, and you got to hope he stays healthy. You got to hope that he doesn't fumble. And then they're just going up and down the list. I just think that Rob's team just has a lot better players. I think that Rob has a very well-rounded team. I don't like Rob's flexes. I think he could do a little bit better there. So it'll be interesting to see. I think my biggest question that's going to come out of this matchup is, if Justin pulls this off and Rob goes to 0-2, what Rob does with Michael Thomas would be my biggest question.
Yeah, I wonder if he starts kind of dangling that one around. I'll say this: I'm not a huge fan of either of these teams. I know Justin did get off to a 1-0 start. Rob did put up a lot of points in a loss, but I mean, I think Rob's team has upside. Allen, Chubb, Hilaire, Cooper, Metcalf sounds like a pretty solid 5, but I do think it gets a little sketchy towards the end there. We'll see. I think Rob's definitely the favorite coming in, but it'll be a tough matchup either way. But early, interesting division one. Krim, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle kind of summed it up for the most part. It's tough for Justin's team to kind of show out this week, I think, just because you're relying on Winston, hoping that he throws another. I think he had 5 actually last week, which is even nuttier. He threw 5 on 150 yards. I mean, we saw it happen, but it's very unheard of in regards to that. You're playing Connor. You're hoping he scores again. You're not going to get a lot of yards out of him for the most part. And just all in all, I mean, you're up against Nick Chubb too, playing Houston. I think that's obviously it's a cop out. I mean, it's Houston, it's Nick Chubb. It's going to be easy to kind of point the finger at that guy and say that guy's going to be your X factor, but it's someone who Nick Chubb can easily go ahead and put up 25 points. I mean, last week he had 21. He scored 2 touchdowns and 83 yards rushing. I mean, is it going to be impossible to hit 102 against this Houston Texans defense? Absolutely not. So, I mean, Rob has all the firepower in the world to win this week, and I mean, if we see Justin take a 2-0, jump out of the gate, that's going to be surprising because that team does not look very good at all.
All right. So we're down to
Justin's team would look a lot better if it had DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's got 4 Bears too. I don't know if you guys noticed that. He's got 4 Bears on his team now. He's definitely riding the Bears train. Darn right. Got to go with the name. All right. Next matchup is going to be my matchup, which is going to be Smoking on the Gasket and Krim's matchup.
Oh, I didn't even know about this.
I know. We're versing each other. This is a fun early one in division here. Kyle, since you're the unbiased one here, tell us, how's it going to go?
I think I want to let you guys kind of take this. I want to hear what you guys have to say before I chime in. I'll be the moderator here.
There you go. Krim, how are you going to handle that ass beating last week and trying to rebound this week so you don't get it back to back, just fucking radio show host smackings?
I can sit here and point out some shit. I mean, Monday night was massive last week for people who had Waller, who had Lamar. It cost them, obviously. Tyson had a really good game last week on Monday, so Monday night's kind of that's where I'm. I got all my eggs in that basket really with Rodgers and Devontae. But I mean, matchup wise, I think I have a lot of guys on my squad that can perform very well. I mean, Harris against the Jets, Devontae and Rodgers against the Lions, Diggs against Miami, who they tend to bring it to them every time. Higbee, like Kyle mentioned, for who was it again? I forget. It was somebody who didn't come off the field. Higbee, same guy, didn't come off the field. He played every snap on offense for the Rams. So I mean, that's pretty massive. Evans hopefully bounces back against Atlanta. I mean, I've got the means and the projections show that I'm gonna win. I think I am going to win because, I mean, obviously you have talent too. You've got my boy McCaffrey, you've got Hurts, but Kenyon Drake, and obviously Kyle has some sort of feels the same type of way as I do. I like Kenyon Drake, but the Raiders need to like Kenyon Drake. And if they don't and they stick with Peyton Barber and he cuts into the work, your RB2 now becomes, well, I mean, you can kind of argue it's Tyson, but having a running back that's not going to get the bulk of the work in a matchup that's pretty tough, it's hard to rely on.
Yeah, I think Barber will cut in the carries a little bit, but I do think Kenyon Drake will actually get carries this week, so I'm not too worried about that. And I am benching Mark Ingram. Well, I shouldn't say benching, but I did have Ingram in all week. I like the 26 carries, even though he's going
Put
into
him
some.
back in.
I know he has a tough matchup against Cleveland, but I really like that volume. But with injury to Jacobs, I'm going to ride it with Drake. I still am not decided on the quarterback either. There's part of me that wants to start Stafford against Indy, but Hurts's ceiling,
Stafford,
it's just tough.
Stafford,
But it is San
Stafford.
Francisco. But I like my team so far. Red flags were flying up preseason when I lost ATN and J.K. Dobbins, but somehow, some way, the mist is kind of clearing, and I got the Williams running backs that are rookies. Drake's kind of the guy there in Oakland, we'll see, or in Las Vegas, and I got Ingram just waiting in the wings, who's been heavy volume so far. So, I like the way my team played last week. I was a little surprised myself that I put up that many points, and I can kind of just hope it keeps rolling. Now, Kyle, tell us where we're all wrong.
Crim's going to win this matchup. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think that most people would agree that Rodgers is going to come out Monday night. He's probably going to throw 4 touchdowns to Devontae Adams, and I think that will probably win the matchup alone. And then you just got across the board. I mean, Diggs is going to be a solid matchup there. Miami, he'll put up points. Higbee, I like Higbee a lot more than I like Goddard. Mike Evans and Chase Edmonds in the flex over Tyson Williams and Javonte Williams. I don't know if Javonte Williams, what we're going to expect from him, considering that he's still, I don't even know if he's going to get the bulk of the carries still. Tyson Williams, I mean, yeah, sure, he's in a good situation in Baltimore, but they also just signed Devontae Freeman to the regular squad, and they still have Latavius Murray, which Tyson Williams missed a bunch of blocks early in that game. And then the second half, it was mostly Latavius Murray. So I'm pretty concerned about Tyson Williams, what his usage will be. I think he'll definitely get run. I mean, he's the rookie. I think they're going to give him a little bit of a leash there, but if he keeps missing pass protections and if he fumbles, it could be over for him. They got enough veterans on that roster that know what they're doing. And I don't think, again, kind of like San Francisco, they're not going to give that role to one person. I mean, we saw Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins all get targets on any given week. So I think it's going to be a similar situation there. I just don't think that Eric has the horses of reliability here. I mean, you're not getting reliable touches out of Kenyon Drake. You're not getting reliable touches out of Javonte Williams or Tyson Williams. So I just don't think Eric has the horses to get the job done. Even if McCaffrey goes for 30, 35 against Creamy there, it might break his heart. But I
hope he does it. I hope he
room.
scores this week, because last week that man was the RB1 and never hit the end zone. So I want to see more.
Christian McCaffrey's floor was RB1. He didn't score.
I know, right? And I will say, this is a big week for Javonte Williams going against Jacksonville. I was higher on Jacksonville coming into this year, but I don't know what kind of performance they put out week 1. But Javonte Williams did out carry Melvin Gordon last week, and I'm curious if he is able to kind of put together a good game in Jacksonville. That could be big for him. But we'll see. We'll see. Like you said, that Adams Rodgers connection might do me in. Monday night might just be a heartbreaker, but we'll see. All right, next matchup is going to be Fear the Herbinator, our friend Dave, going against Crimson's brother Trey here. I think this is one of the best teams in the league versus one of the worst teams in the league, even though one of the worst teams in the league, Chop Squad, is projected for about 120 points. Dave starting off 0-1. Both looking for their first win of the season. I still like Dave here, even though Galladay got off to a 5-point start. That's never a nice number to see. I was a little surprised that he went that direction. Again, I know he's got his weird loves for certain players, but what do you guys think of this matchup? Krim, we'll start with you.
I mean, obviously, I think that Dave has the edge just because he's got, even though he has the Chargers and Trey has kind of a Falcons connection there. Just from what I saw last week with these players, I mean, I think Kittle kind of performs better. D-Hop had a really good week last week. I think Keenan does what he does. I think Zeke actually gets carries this week.
Yeah, what's going on with Zeke?
I don't know what they're doing with that man. They pay him all this money, and they gave him 11 carries, and he had 2 targets like all game long. When Dak kind of, I think, wanted to kind of have a coming out party and just kind of sling that thing around the yard. Obviously, they had a chance to win but lost, and it was a good game for them. But I think that Zeke gets involved more so this week. Dave's call on Galladay. I think that's the kind of thing that gets people caught up is you want to have a guy in every game. You want to kind of watch that Thursday night game and be like, you know what, I've got this guy. Hopefully he does well. Meanwhile, Dave could have easily played Ronald Jones against Atlanta,
And he's
who
going to
is
start this week, they
hopefully
said.
the starter. Yeah, but even
Yeah.
if he doesn't, and if you give him 12 touches against that horrible defense, he's going to give you more than the 5 points, I think. So that could cost Dave in the long run for all we know. But Trey's team, I mean, last week performed very poorly. This week, I mean, we have to see a lot more from it. I mean, he's got the players and obviously projections that say they can do it. I think that Atlanta with Mike Davis and Calvin Ridley isn't all bad because Mike Davis can catch passes, and Ridley obviously just had a down week last week, I think. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got thrown all over against the Cowboys, so who's to say Ridley doesn't go off himself? But these guys on his team had bad weeks. They need to just bounce back, really. And I mean, his team does look on paper like garbage. I'm not going to sit here and lie; it doesn't. But clearly, like he's got players that can play, and it's just a matter of those guys working out. So obviously, it's anyone's game. I do think that Dave has an edge just because his matchups are more favorable. But I mean, who's to say things don't go sideways for Dave again, and he's off to a 0-2 start and starts tilting. So
Yeah, having Zeke and Robinson put up together like barely over 10 points was rough for Dave. And I think I like Dave's team a lot, and I liked it a lot heading into the season. But if Zeke and Robinson are going to put up barely over 10 points combined, you're just not going to win many games. And Keenan's got a good matchup this week. D-Hop's got another good matchup. Kittle can maybe get open against Philly, but it really comes down to his running backs. And maybe Herbert can have a big game against that Dallas defense. But if Dave starts off 0-2, yeah, I mean, especially if Robinson and Zeke struggle again, he's going to be in big trouble. Kyle, thoughts?
I think you guys are way too high on Dave's team, to be honest. I think that Herbert, I think he's good. He's going to have a very good week this week. It's going to depend on how many of those touchdowns that he throws go to Keenan Allen. But I think on the other side, Ryan Tannehill and Julio Jones are going to put up similar numbers to what those will. I don't know if you guys heard this, but Mike Vrabel like threw Julio under the bus and kind of sent him a message for getting an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty in last week's game. I think that Julio comes out. They're going to look to get him involved early and often. He's going to come to play, and they're going to try and want to get him incorporated into this offense. So I think that's the big thing is I think if Julio catches over 100 yards, I think that Trey wins this matchup. He's got Eckler, who is going to score points against Dallas. I know that Herbert will get his. I think Eckler will kind of keep up there, score his points. Brandon Cooks, not enough people are giving enough respect to Houston, including myself. I think that Houston's actually a better team than we all think they are. They got a lot of veterans. They're not playing rookies. This isn't just like some bad rookie team that's just throwing people out there. It's a team of veterans that want to play. They want to win, and they're all playing for contracts. And Brandon Cooks is a Super Bowl champion. He's a guy that just goes out, lunch pail guy, and just gets the job done. Marvin Jones, people are saying that he's going to be the wide receiver one, or he's treated like the wide receiver one in Jacksonville, and what has a game that Jacksonville can put up points. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Calvin Ridley, we know what he can do. So I like some of these pieces that Trey has. I don't think his team is hot garbage, like you guys would say. I think he's going to come out and beat Dave this week.
The thing I worry about a little bit is I know Eckler had a hamstring issue last week, but for a guy that's supposed to be getting 4 or 5 catches a game, if not more in certain instances, he didn't even get targeted once. So I don't know if that's a new game plan by the Chargers. If I know Herbert wasn't facing much pressure, but Eckler's fantasy value dropped significantly if he's going to be getting 0 catches a week. So we'll see what happens there. But a lot of fun stuff there. Do we have one more matchup, or is that all of them?
Nope, that'll be all.
That is all of them. All right. So those are the matchups for the week. Should be fun. Like I said, the first 5 weeks are all divisional matchups. So before we wrap up the show, we are going to give our fun little power rankings that we're going to do week to week to kind of go up and down the list. I'll give my 12 through 9 teams, and then you guys will do yours. So in 12th, I have the aforementioned Trey. At 11, I have Rob. And a lot of these aren't changed too much from the draft. I didn't want to switch them too much after 1 week. At 10, I have Justin, and at 9, I have Peter. Give me your 12 through 9, Crimson.
At 12, I have you because go fun on. At 12, I have Trey, and that's kind of I feel like we're all going to kind of agree on that. 11th, I have Chad just because Chad's team I mean, I'm not too high on him myself. 10, I have Dana, and 9, I have Justin, just because he won, so I kind of gave him a little bit of an edge over him.
Give him a little break there.
Little
There you
bump, little bump.
go.
You have
Kyle, what's your
You have
12?
Dana at 10?
I
Yeah, I
did.
know that's crazy.
All right. For me, at 12, I'm gonna put Crimmy down there, just because there's only
Ooh.
one team that lost by 81 points last week, and that's gonna be Crimmy. So eat shit, Crim.
Gotta start from the
11,
bottom.
I'm gonna go your brother Trey. So just to rub some salt in the wound there. 10, I'm gonna go Justin. I'm not a huge fan of some of the moves that he made. We'll see how his team kind of looks in a couple weeks. 9, I'm gonna go Eric. I know Eric's battled the injuries. I just don't really like the floor of his team. I think that the floor is pretty low for him.
All right. My 8 through 5, I got Kyle at 8, Tyler at 7. I think he's right in the middle there. This is where those kind of fringe playoff teams I got in my mind right now. 6, I have Jay, and 5, I have Crimson. So we got some different ones here. Crimson, what's your 8 through 5?
Now my 12th is Kyle. No. 8, I have Dave. 7, I have Rob. 6, I have Kyle. A little bit of a bump just because he won. 5, I have Peter.
Who did I beat?
Some guy who had because a good team. His team didn't perform, something like that.
For me, 8, I got Chad. 7, I got Dave. 6, I got Tyler. 5, I got Rob.
All right, my 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll put myself at 4. I like the way I'm battling the injuries. I'm trying to persevere. We'll see what happens. Chad, I actually have at 3. I like his team quite a bit. I hope he can keep it going. Dave, I have it too. I still think Dave's team's good. Obviously, the running backs need to be there. I anticipated Robinson and Zeke doing well. If that happens, then his receivers will always perform. So I really like his front end there. And at number 1, I still got Dana. Like I said, I'm not overreacting too much to week 1. He looks like he's in line for a win this week, especially with Chad's 41 points from 4 players. I don't know why Dane's projections are so low, and I know he's got to put in some backups already. So there is a really good shot that Dane could start off 0-2, but I think he's got too much on his team. So I still have him as the number 1.
You can't have Chad in your top 4 knowing he's about to take an L this week.
It's just it's a season-long power rankings, you know.
And you gave Dana the number 1 spot, even though he's 0-1.
I know.
They
Hey,
earned
man.
it.
Oh yeah, 1 week. We can't overreact to 1 week,
They
right?
went and took it. I'm gonna go next. So I got me at 4. I got Peter at 3. I got Dana at 2 and Jay at 1. Jay came and took it. He earned it. He deserved that top spot. He got that victory last week over Dana. But
Baseball
I'm not
and football. Is this the comeback of Jay? Is this the year Jay is gonna do it? He might.
Maybe.
All right, Krim. What's your 4 through 1?
All right, I'll save this whole thing for another time. I mean, I don't know why you guys are so high on Dana's team. It's kind of bizarre as fuck, but that's okay.
You can dive in.
I mean, it just overall the team doesn't look fantastic. I'm not a big fan of having to play.
I mean, he should be 1-0. I mean, where's his weakness?
Yes, you can say he should be 1-0, but Jay shouldn't have had Aaron Jones give him a fucking 3 either. So it doesn't really matter at that point. His weakness is his running backs. Kareem Hunt is your RB2 the entire time. He wasn't really guaranteed any sort of carries. I mean, yes,
Josh Jacobs is his RB2.
Well, and I said that in the first show. I don't like Josh Jacobs because his line is pretty bad. We saw from this past week he's not effective. He scored 2 touchdowns and had what? Not even fucking 40 yards. Like that's bad. So that's not really any sort of upgrade there for me. So I mean,
But he was battling what, turf toe?
The turf toe is obviously affecting him, but at the same time,
the 16.5 points with turf toe is bad.
Yeah, when 12 of them are off touchdowns, yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, how else can you really put it? He scored 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's significantly going to change. You take them away, obviously, you have fucking 4. So that's pretty bad. The team, all in all, I mean, I don't like it myself, but obviously it's got pieces. But as a whole, I'm not a big fan of it. But I will round out my top 4 before we get too off topic here. 4, I have Eric, kind of where he put himself. 3, I have myself because I feel like my team is pretty well rounded. Obviously, a bad week is gonna show us.
You're gonna let him put himself at 3, Kyle, after his week he just had? You're gonna let him do that?
Absolutely.
God.
2, I have Tyler.
You know what else is pretty well rounded? That ass after I gave it a nice spanking last
Oh,
week.
that's okay. I mean, I'm glad that we play week 1 because week fucking whatever 13, 14 when we play again, and I'm sitting.
It might be meaningless. You might be out of it by then.
He might be out of it by then. That's what I'm talking about. I mean,
I might rest my players. I might have the bye locked up by then.
Yeah.
at this, you're resting your players because you're gonna be having all of 4 wins. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, Waller absolutely cooked last week. If you can't do that week in and week out,
Can someone? So that's going to be what, like November at that point?
something
Yeah.
like
Can someone remind me what happens to Derrick Henry come November?
Yeah. There you go. Gonna be
that's fine.
getting the load. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. And
What happened to David Montgomery when we got to November last year?
Yeah. Started running that football a little bit. We'll see if the Bears actually know how to do that. Run for 3 carries, 57 yards, and throw 10 times in a row.
We'll have Justin Fields by then, and Justin Fields are taking away all the carries. So
There we go.
Oh yeah, because running quarterbacks definitely are a bad thing for running backs. That's right.
I mean, for some of them they are.
Another cool thing on the site too is that if you do get, I don't think it's available on the phone, but if you're on your computer, that underneath the standings, that overall the breakdown thing's really cool. I always like looking at the breakdown to see like how many people you would have beaten in a given week. So obviously Kyle with the highest score would have went 11-0 against anybody. Yeah. Peter with 10-1. It's a good way of keeping track of who gets the $10 a week. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, so kind of a cool little thing there. It keeps track of your record. The coach thing's there. I'm not a huge fan of the coach thing because it could also just prove, yeah, you make the good decisions, but you also could have just a really bad bench that doesn't score at all. That could also be the case too. So, Kyle winning good manager in both leagues. How about that? But any last thoughts, guys, before we wrap up? We're a weekend. Obviously, we got some reactions to the season so far, but anything we got left here, Kyle?
No, just I don't want to run too long because I know Krim has to go back to sitting on his ice pack. So other than that, yeah, not a whole lot going on.
I love the trash talking early. It is great.
I just cannot wait until again he drops a 1-2, or 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, and now
he's
like,
made the playoffs every year, so he's at least got that going for him.
And it's resulted in nothing. So, I mean, so far we're in the same boat at that point. Last year, obviously, I showed face and said, what's good? I'm going to slap that ass at that point. So, when we meet again at that point, I'm cool with it. My record there is cool. So, it's week 1. We have 14 other games to go. So, I mean, it's going to be a long grind, and I want you to keep the same energy from week 1 to week 15.
Yeah, there you go. At least we got 3 combined rings in this party, so that's good. You got the most playoff appearances, Krim, but you just don't have any hardware. You and Kyle combined in 9 playoff appearances, 0 rings. So once you guys get one of them on your fingers, then we can start talking a little bit. All right, there we go. But yeah, any last thoughts? Oh, I already asked you that. So
That's it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in for the Sideline week 1 or going into week 2 fantasy show. Excited to bring it to you week to week. Hopefully you guys have fun listening in. Have fun on your Sundays, and talk to you next week.